have to share the experience that turned me into a believer. A couple months after this happened, a friend was dining out, explaining my story, when a stranger at the next table turned around and stated that something similar had happened to him at the exact same place. This place, the Lyman School for Boys Mental Hospital, whatever you want to call it, is known to be severely haunted, but I didn't believe that crap. No way. So I go there to have a couple drinks with a friend. We get into an argument. He leaves. Buzzed me decided to light a fire about a quarter mile from the crematorium, alone, at around 2 a.m. I grab some sticks and leaves and start walking down a small access road with a pump house. It's at a reservoir. This is where it begins. All of a sudden, I notice this strange white outline, first indistinguishable, right under a light. As I get closer, it looks like a woman in white, with white hair flipped forward over her face. My heart skips a beat, but as I move closer, it vanishes into thin air, as I'm staring at it, not blinking at all. I try to ignore it, but I'm shaken. About 15 feet after the boathouse, there is a narrow path that leads to the clearing. As I hit this, the temperature drops noticeably. I had recalled bringing this up at the same point a year earlier during daytime, and I moved on, but even more so on edge, hairs on my neck standing up, mind screaming. As I get 2/3 of the way down, I hear this piercing shriek, and a squirrel bolts out directly less than a foot in front of me, and I jump back in terror. This was so generic scary movie pre-scare that I actually tried to use it as, this is so fake, there's no way there's a real spirit here. But at this point I was terrified, but wouldn't turn around, as that would require me admitting that there were spirits. I get to the water and stand there, feeling a presence. I look to the path I walked in on, and it completely fogged up in a matter of less than 30 seconds. At this point, I'm ready to get out of here, but stand in disbelief looking at the water for a moment. At which point, I hear this dry, piercing whisper coming from all around me. All it said was, "Out." I took that to mean, get out. I immediately dropped my fire-making supplies and speed walked out. Then all of a sudden, I heard footsteps following me. I stopped. They stopped. I continued. They continued. I ran. I haven't been back to that place since, and any time a friend asks to go there, I tell them, fuck no. After this had happened, a friend recalled a time we were skinny dipping at the same clearing, and a girl we were with went completely limp in the water, eyes rolled back. I dragged her to shore and checked her pulse. She was fine. She was just staring at the sky with a blank expression. All of us nude as fuck. When she came back, she had zero recollection. We chalked it up to her being an attention whore. But after my experience, I have a hard time thinking something else wasn't at play. When I was about 10 years old, I was going sledding at night over at Hospital Hill in Northampton, Massachusetts. As soon as I got out of the car, I saw a woman sitting on the hill, wearing an old gray Victorian-era dress, calmly reading a book, as if she wasn't surrounded by noisy children. Back then, I didn't even know there was an abandoned asylum behind the trees. And this happened the year it was starting to get torn down. At first, I thought it was a real live woman, until one of the children sledding slid right through her and she still didn't move. apparently I was the only one who saw her, because when I told my mother, she said there wasn't anyone there. I ended up staying in the car, and the entire time she didn't move. No matter how many times I pointed the lady out, my mother still insisted there was nobody there.
I attended college in Boston. During my senior year, a bunch of brand new apartments were built in this neighborhood called Mission Hill, and my friends and I decided to move into one. I had a bedroom on the second floor, and a lot of weird things happened in that room. I'd often wake up abruptly in the middle of the night covered in sweat, and the room would be super hot, above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, even in the dead of Boston winter. If I walked out into the hallway, it would be normal temperature. Even things in the room seemed hot to the touch, but I wrote it off as my room sharing a wall with the in-unit laundry and dryer. Mind you, this being a brand new apartment, we had central heating and cooling. My roommate with the bedroom adjacent to mine never had this problem. And other strange things used to happen. I had the weird feeling of being watched when I was in my room. Things would be moved around when I hadn't moved them. And when girls stayed over, even they mentioned, "It's so hot in here," or "I can't sleep, I just have this weird feeling." But whatever, just chalking it up to circumstance. Fast forward to the day I'm moving out. The room is entirely empty, and I'm sweeping up some dust on the floor when I noticed something stuck between my screen and the window. Now, the window was a permanent screen, so even if the inner window was open, nothing would be able to get in from the outside. I had opened that window numerous times over the summer to let in fresh air. There was never anything in it. So I stroll over to the window, open it, and realize it's a Polaroid picture. One of the instant ones that print out of the camera as soon as you take it. It's also burned around the edges. The picture itself is super weird. 2/3 of it are just black, but on the right third of the picture is this girl's face. Not smiling or frowning, just staring and illuminated by the flash. As I'm standing there pondering it, I get an intense feeling of unease. I swear it felt like the room heated up instantly to a super hot level. I immediately threw the picture into the trash and got the hell out of there, and I never went back. Afterwards, I figured the girl in the photograph looked vaguely like the girl who used to live there before us. So I convinced myself it must have been her photograph she left behind. Later on is the creepiest part. When signing new documents for a different lease, I found out from the landlord that on the land where those new apartments were built, the old apartments had burned down during a lightning strike, and apparently a few people lost their lives. I can't explain what happened, and to this day it boggles my mind. It's worth noting that my friend who moved into the room experienced the same hotness and weirdness. But obviously nothing as spooky as that picture.
My mom's house is a 60-year-old house in western Massachusetts. The guy who built it was this cranky old fuck with a long Polish name. I completely forgot what it is. He had a huge beard, was wheelchair-bound and chain-smoked, and he had a crazy son. The son was on every drug ever, constantly in jail, and absolutely out of his mind. Bad vibes in that house. He died shortly after he sold us the house. My bedroom was in the attic, and I always got really awful vibes up there. To the point where when I would visit my mother, I would sleep on the living room couch to avoid spending time up there. I felt similarly in the basement, half of which was furnished as my sister's bedroom. I couldn't be down there for more than a couple minutes at a time, to change the laundry over or whatever. My sister said she would always feel light touches on her arms and legs at night while sleeping down there, and would smell peppermint. It happened so frequently that she stopped being freaked out by it. I was a bit validated when my mom got 2 new cats one day. We had a dog at the time, so we kept the cats in the basement for a while they adjusted to our presence and learned where their litter boxes and stuff were. I was sitting down in the basement hanging around with the cats so they'd get used to me, when suddenly I noticed that they were both absolutely fixated on the corner of the room where my sister's bed was. They were sitting hunched over very tensely, staring without blinking at something in that corner. It was empty as far as I could see. They stared at it for a seriously long time, until I got freaked out and went upstairs. Not long after that, my mother and I smelled cigarette smoke coming up from the central air vent that attaches to the basement. My sister smokes. This was late at night, maybe 11 p.m. We stormed downstairs to yell at her for smoking in the house, because that's gross. And there was no one in the basement. My sister wasn't back yet from wherever she'd gone out to. When I moved off to college, my mom rented my creepy-ass bedroom out to my sister's friend, who suddenly lost her apartment, who has been known to be kind of insightful with paranormal stuff. She immediately said, without being given any prior info, that my room was super creepy. Something wasn't right up there. But she didn't find it as unbearable as I did. Then one day, she was down in my sister's room. Keep in mind, nobody told her about the former owner of the house, or any parts of the house that we found creepy. In fact, everyone refused to talk about it at all. So my sister's friend came upstairs one day and flat out said she saw a guy with a beard in the basement, sitting in a wheelchair, smoking a cigarette. I refused to go back to the house after that. She sold it this year. Thank fucking God. I saw what I believed to be a Wendigo or skinwalker. I was driving back from my friend's place in rural Western Mass around 1-2 a.m. I was driving through this area that's about 3/4 of a mile long. It's just a long canopy of dense trees. Dark even in the day, but at night, it's pitch black. You can barely see 20 feet in front of you, even with the high beams on. Driving about 6 feet away from the side of the road, 100 feet ahead of me, I see something that looks wrong in a way I can't explain. You know when something doesn't make sense to you? Or you just know something isn't right? Like the parasympathetic feeling we get when we see someone break their ankle. We know it isn't supposed to bend that way, so it gives us the heebie-jeebies. It was like that, but I wasn't sure why until I was about 30 feet away from it. There was this coyote standing on its hind legs. It was way too tall to be an actual coyote standing upright. Coyotes are the size of a very small lab, around 50 pounds on a good day, if that. This thing was at least 6 feet standing. It made me feel nauseous just looking at it. It was too tall, and its face was wrong. It looked humanoid, the same way we recognize human faces as being human. I had that feeling like I was looking at a person, but it wasn't totally human. It reminded me of cat eye syndrome, but at least that is explainable. This wasn't. So anyway, I spent way too long being as close as I was to that thing as it stared at me. But I gunned it out of there and locked the hell out of my house when I got home, despite being around 20 miles away from where I saw it. I don't know what it was, but it freaked the fuck out of me.